great to see loads of people here in Trowbridge. I went to school about 20 metres, 30 metres that way. I went to Clarendon, Boo or Cheer, depending if you're a Trowbridge resident. That was like over 25 years ago now, and it was when I came to do work experience at the Wiltshire Times, the newspaper in Trowbridge, I got to meet Nikki, and we've been in touch ever since. She's always been continually supportive of my career, and I come and do things like this for her every once in a while. And that's one of the most important things. Before I start to talk to anybody else, get to know people in the industry. Start spreading your web wide when you're young. Meet people, take names, pursue people. I kept knocking on the door. When I started at that newspaper, they put me in the advertising department. I think I was doing funerals and weddings for the first few days I was there, and I said I really want to get into the editorial team, and I don't mind coming back in my holiday. And I managed to get that to happen, and then from there it built up into a weekly thing, which I did when I was in sixth form. And 25 years later, or more later, I'm a media consultant now, so I work for the Lad Bible, if you've ever heard of the Lad Bible, IGN.com, the big video games website. I do some work with Electronic Arts on particular issues related to video games, related to loot boxes, gambling, and I do a lot of promotion on their game FIFA. I also work for Creative England. I do some work for Creative England, and I used to work at Facebook and Instagram, and I was really fortunate in that I went from working in the West Country. I spent a lot of time in New York and spent a lot of time in California. So I'm really interested. I've had a short chat with the people on the panel, and you're really lucky because you're actually going to hear from some people that can give you some really good insights into how they got to where they are. But importantly, the most important thing is if any of us here interest you, or what you think we do sounds interesting, come and have a chat with us, give us your details, try and keep in touch with us, because that's going to be a really useful way that you can all get something from it. I'm going to start from the other end, and we're going to work back towards me, and we're going to start with Connor. Now, you were a Wiltshire College student, weren't you?
I was.
And how many years ago was that?
7.
And where did you? So you finish at college. What happens then? What have you done since then? Talk to us a little bit about what you're working on at the moment and a bit of your journey.
So basically, in short, I went from college then to university, and then from university went straight into the work experience that I'd done whilst I was at uni. Managed to get a job working on Euro 2016 with ITV Sport. I always wanted to go into entertainment, so I made the change from then, because obviously ITV is quite a big company, there's lots of different sort of sectors within it. And then from then I kind of jumped up as a runner, did various shows, sort of like Celebrity Big Brother, and all of those sort of entertainment type shows. And then I sort of set up again as a junior researcher, and now I'm a researcher and aspiring to work up to be a producer.
Tell me a little bit about what a researcher does, because I've actually often wondered myself, what do you do?
It literally changes with sort of most jobs. It changes with show to show, but you have a lot more kind of responsibility than a runner, and you sort of get sort of a lot more involved sort of editorially. So it could be sort of finding locations and sort of casting contributors, and sort of keeping across things, especially when we film like this year. I kind of worked on The Apprentice, and when you're kind of filming sort of each episode, it's done in such real time that you're always constantly sort of feeding back to the office of what the actual stories are. So it kind of unfolds. But yeah.
Excellent. And Jodie, you work with Sky. Explain a little bit, because you've had a real gamut of experience through your career. And like me, you weren't a great fan of school and education, were you?
No. Actually, when I went to Ravensbourne to apply for a technical course, it was to be trained as a multi-skilled operator. And their actual words to me was, okay, Jodie, what are you going to do then if you don't get in this year? Which was a bit of a telltale sign they didn't actually want me. And it was because I come from a creative background. School really wasn't the thing for me, and so really at that age, 18, if I wasn't going to get into Ravensbourne, what was I going to do? But I wanted to be in the industry, so I thought, okay, let's start as a runner. And for me, I loved running because, you know, some people might not take to it, but for me, it meant I got to speak to absolutely everyone, from the person that owned the company all the way through to the clients, and you know, they loved you, especially if you got their sandwich right. If you didn't, it wasn't a good day. But then, with that experience, I then could go back to Ravensbourne. So for me, hearing the word no isn't the end of the story. For me, hearing the word no is, okay, what have I got to do to turn it into a yes? So then I went to Ravensbourne, and I was trained to be a multi-skilled operator, did my work experience at ITN. I did everything in production, really. I came out of there and I was doing camera work, editing, lighting, sound. But then I got the opportunity presented to me to take an engineering job at ITV, completely different. And I said to them, I have no experience. They said, okay, well, we'll train you. So I started from the lowest level and worked my way up. And then gained another skill and a different perspective of the industry. And then another opportunity presented itself to me, and I'm now, and have been for the last 9 years, a transmission controller, which no one will know what that is.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about what a transmission controller does, because if you're watching Sky and there's a black screen, that's a bad thing, isn't it?
That's a very bad thing, yeah. On air, we are obviously, we are watched carefully and will be fined if the viewer's experience is that of, if we have black on air or there's silence. That's something that can't happen. Even if we can't, if the pictures that we're meant to, if the content that we're meant to, we have to put something else up in place. Just to let the viewer know that they're not looking at a black hole of a beast. So for me, as a transmission controller, when you're watching any channel, there'll be a transmission suite. And there'll be lots of people like me sat in front of that channel. I work on live sports and news. So it's a constant live schedule in real time. So if there's something that's happened, a breaking news, we have to look at the commercial content, which is paying a lot of money attached to each of these channels, attached to each of these events. We have to make sure that when those events overrun, that we are able to bring that schedule back into real time. We liaise with the galleries, but also if there's content that needs to be taken out, we need to take it out and replace it. But this is all in real time. So there's someone at home like absolutely beavering away on cables while the viewer would know nothing about it. So content's being changed constantly. This is something that is really behind the scenes. Most people think of broadcasters production or post-production, but this core thing in the middle is the thing that everyone's work funnels through my room and we push it out to the viewer. So we have to pay that respect to all those meetings that have gone on, all of the production work that has gone on, and make sure that viewer gets the content that they deserve for all the hard work that's gone into it. So if we're not on the ball, there's a lot of money and a lot of people are going to be shouting at us, but you know nothing about that.
Gertch, you're a writer, a director, you shoot films, you've got a really sort of wide breadth of experience. What are you up to at the moment? And you mentor young people as well, don't you?
Yeah, so we run so I'm a senior film creative at Create Studios. We're based in Swindon, which is a digital production company. And we run something called Create Futures, where we take on 4 grads every 3 months. And it's not a team-making exercise by any means. It's like actually, if you're a grad from college or university and you come to us, we're going to teach you all the skills about how to use a camera, how to make content for online, how to understand that process, and then kind of understand the way that the world is changing. Because obviously, it's not just broadcast, it's massive at the moment. Like you're all on social, that's a huge market for us. So it's kind of like working around that and how to develop content for all those kind of platforms, really.
That's a really interesting question in that we've all got sort of varying levels of experience and time since we would have left college or education. How do you think things have changed, Gert, since you were there, and what are the tips you would take from what you've learned over those years? What would be, if you could tell these guys a couple of key points about finding a career or finding the thing you want to do, what advice would you give them? And we'll go across the group and talk to you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so one of the real big challenges, when I talk to young people every day, is that they're really worried about their future because it's so big. The opportunities are really varied, and you can kind of think, well, I don't know what I want to do, because it's not just one thing. So if you're a filmmaker, what does that mean? Does that mean you actually use the camera yourself? Does that mean you just direct somebody else? It's really varied. Post-production is, again, really varied. So the thing that I would say as like advice is actually start to realise. That's not my voice, I believe. So start to realise where you actually want to kind of work in. And if you can work that out a little bit sooner, that will really help you to differentiate where your kind of area lies of expertise. And that, I know that's difficult, and that's a really hard thing to kind of like muster if you haven't had that experience, but try and get that experience. Like you were saying, approach those companies, go out there, put yourself out there. You're going to have to work for free, unfortunately, to start off with. I know that's a controversial area, but when you're young, you want to be getting as much experience as you can. And in that way, you'll be able to really work out the direction you want to go. So the best people that we've had that have worked with us are people who have kind of come with us, and by the end of it, they have a really clear idea of the direction they want to go to, and then they then know the area that they want to go to. So it's difficult, but it's about being clear in your own mind about where you want to actually kind of go into.
And you're involved a lot with the apprentices now at Sky, Jamie. What do you see when people come in? What do you wish? What would you sort of tell anybody that was coming into this situation? Now you've seen quite a few coming through your route. Is there any advice you could give them before they start?
Before that, the industry, believe it or not, is really quite small. So an impression you will make on any day that you'll work within the industry, it will be remembered. Funnily enough, you will literally turn around on the spot in a few years, come back and meet yourself. So in the end, we all end up knowing each other, or we've worked with someone. So your reputation from day dot means everything, because everyone hears about everyone's reputation. So the professionalism is a key thing. You've got to be self-motivated. Even when you get your job, even years later, you have to be self-motivated, because all industries are ever evolving. You have to evolve. People say there isn't a job for life. Okay, but there are industries that are for life, but you have to make yourself current within that, but not be frightened of it. Networking, also, if you do pick a path, I do agree, if you're lucky enough to really know what you want to do and you set out on that path and you keep going with that, fantastic. If you're someone like me that I just wanted to be in the industry, didn't quite know what I wanted to do or where I wanted to be, I had the tenacity to ask for the opportunities. If I heard the word no, okay, what have I got to do? To then go back and ask again. And normally you'll find if you ask and you get a no, whether you're applying somewhere or not, if you then apply again and again, they're going to keep remembering your name. And they're going to be like, this person isn't going away. That shows that tenacity, that shows that staying power. So don't ever be frightened to change your career when you're in it. Go for opportunities that make sense to you. Try everything. Most companies are really supportive and will give you that help. And if you don't like that, you can go back to your day job. But just take a cross-section of the industry and don't limit yourself. If you're one of those people like me that just doesn't really know what you want to do, but you like the industry, that's fine. Just start from somewhere, but remember your reputation will always precede you.
And likewise with you, Connor, you kind of had this idea about what you wanted to get into. When it comes to work now, are you looking at are you working with a single production company, or are you just looking for roles and shows that potentially interest you before you sign up to them? How's it working for you?
So I'm freelance, so I go from contract to contract, and it really varies on the more experienced you are. You can be a bit more picky on what shows you would like to work on, but when you start out, you literally have to say yes to everything. But then you work out what you want to do by saying yes to everything. And going back to your point about what's kind of changed, I've noticed a lot of roles kind of all merge into one, because everyone's got less money and all that kind of stuff, so you need to be multi-skilled. And what I always remember is go and make your mistakes whilst you're at college and uni, because if you make mistakes, it doesn't matter at all. And also when it comes to sort of networking, I think it's easier to find people and contact people than it ever has been, just because of like everyone's names on the credits. Just work out people's kind of email addresses when it comes to like companies and contact people. And also if you're really passionate, and contact the shows that you're kind of interested in, because then that passion naturally comes through when you talk to them. And just because I remember when I was at uni, I once sort of tweeted the exec producer of Saturday Night Takeover, and I said, do you mind emailing me? I've got a couple of questions to ask you. He then emailed me, and then I managed to do like loads of work experience a couple of years ago, and we still keep in contact now. So literally, when you think nothing is out of reach, it's so easy to contact people than what you actually think it is.
That's so true, and I think that's how I've often moved through my career, and even where I am now. I really wanted to get into radio about 7 or 8 years ago, and I hadn't made a career in radio, and I messaged some radio stations and said, here's some stuff I've done, what do you think? Some of them went, no, not interested, or you're not the right voice, or you're not the right person for us, or you've got a bit of a West Country accent, or you don't pronounce your THs correctly. And then I found a home with LBC, a big commercial phone-in radio station, and they're obviously based in London, but I've got a studio in my house just outside of Swindon, and it's brilliant. Not only can I do my radio in my boxer shorts, it also means I can keep a London job and work with a London radio station, but do it from Wiltshire. And it's one of the things that I feel really most privileged with. I've made my life in this county, but I've been fortunate enough to be able to work with people in a lot of places. I've had to make some moves at various points in my career out of the county, but I'm still fortunate enough. It's where I love to live. I'm able to come back. And Wiltshire, are you southwest based all of your life? Have you lived in a similar sort of place?
Yeah, Swindon, born and bred, really. So yeah, literally, I went to university, went to London, did a little bit of work down there. Kind of worked a bit for Channel 4, BBC, but then actually came back to Swindon, and I suppose I was really fortunate enough to. I've been with Create for quite a while, for about 15 years, I think. And so I kind of started off as a freelancer with them, but kind of have been growing the company with them. But opportunities are now coming to us, which is great, because we've got an ambition to grow the company, and that ambition is we want to be going into all different sectors, so like broadcast, documentary, and I think if you have that ambition, those opportunities start to happen really. But people say if you're in Swindon, maybe it's a bit difficult to be in kind of media, and especially like in film, which is true. Like if you go to London, the opportunities are going to be massive and huge, but you've got to do the same kind of work there as you've got to do in this kind of area really, which is network and meet people and put yourself out there. So, but I think opportunities can come to you, so you'll find you probably have to travel around all over the country to try and build your portfolio of work.
Have you relocated for your work? Have you always sort of been in the same sort of area?
I've always been in the same area, but it used to be easier to get to work. Like so, post-production was Soho. I could jump, while I lived South East London, I could jump on a train to Waterloo, easy. Charing Cross, easy. But then everyone started to relocate. So over the other side of London to Heathrow. So even though I'm only 22 miles away from work, sometimes it can take me 2.5 hours to get home. But you go where the work is, and I'm not a slave to that. But the job to me is important enough. What I get out of it is important enough. And so I factor that into my working day to make sure I go where the opportunity is. So even though I'm in London, there's people that, don't live in London, live further out than me, but their route home, they get home a lot quicker. So it swings and roundabouts, but you do where your passion takes you. So if I had to go and travel, I would, most definitely. When I've been commissioned to do work, I've absolutely jumped on a plane and I worked abroad, But again, it depends where your drive and your burning ambition is. It'll tell you where you're going to go.
And Connor, do you go where the shows and the gigs are, and is that mostly London, or do you find work in Bristol or Manchester or other cities? Where do you go?
So when I first came to the industry a couple of years ago, it was very sort of London-centric. Stuff was starting to move up to Manchester, but now it's kind of branching out. Like people are Channel 4 making a lot. Most of their recent commissions have been outside of London. There's more, and also production companies are branching out into places like Bristol, which is quite handy. So actually work experience in Bristol is actually more of a possibility than sort of ever before, because I think Love Productions are up there now, RDF, 2020 BBC have always been up there.
Channel 4 have got a regional base just opening there.
And the same with Manchester's, all the kids stuff and the sports stuff has gone up there for the BBC. So we're actually quite fortunate where we are now, as in relation to Bristol, because a lot more is kind of going up there. And even though I live in London now, moving out of London is something that I would be considering for the future, because it's a busy place, it's expensive, but at the moment it's where the work is for me and the kind of shows that I want to work on. But then when I work on shows, you can work be on location for a long period of time. Like when I was working on Gogglebox, you're literally just around the country all the time. And then the same with The Apprentice, you can literally film in anywhere. Also, a lot of my friends have gone and worked abroad for long periods of time, so you kind of give up a lot, but then if you enjoy what you're doing, then you can't really complain.
Any questions from the floor? We've still got loads more to talk about here, but if anybody out there want to ask a question? There at the back.
You mentioned how you didn't get certain jobs at radio stations because of the way you pronounce things. Is that like a thing that happens all the time? Like you don't get a certain job at radio stations because of your accent?
I think the most challenging thing about radio stations is the boss always know the type of voice they're looking for, and you should never take that personally, because if one knocks you back, somebody else will take you on. And bizarrely, the radio station where I tried to start a career and they told me I'd never be good enough have hired me to do a load of shows over Christmas. So what you've got to look at in these scenarios is play the long game. Sometimes getting a rejection can actually be all the motivation you need to do it better, and then go and find a different route or a different way into what you're doing. And I guess that's the same with rejection. How have you guys handled rejection, or somebody telling you it doesn't work for you? Start with you, actually, and we'll go down the line.
I mean, it's full of rejections. And actually, and you know, it really is. And like when you're first starting out, I think you've got to really have a tough kind of exterior, really. And you always, but the thing is, you've got to always apply for stuff. So the thing you can't do is you can't just be rejected and then go, that's it, I'm done. You've got to keep going up and try again and again. And that's what happened. You know, when I was first starting, I was applying for so much stuff and nothing was working out. And then suddenly I got on to make a 10-minute doc with, you know, a local team here. Then got on to be, you know, funded by UK Film Council. You know, but I had so many rejections before that. And then everything just turned out to be in the right way. But just don't stop. Don't stop. Like you were saying, that is that.
Don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Don't think that okay, well, I can never do that. If it's something you do want to do, even if you think someone's, I suppose, maybe judging you. I mean, look, you talk about accents. I've got a South East London accent. I'm blonde and I'm small. When I started in the industry, when there was no women, like, everything was against me, because that was just the nature of how it was. So for me, I saw it as a massive challenge. I like being underestimated. I love being underestimated because it's a win-win. So for me, every time I heard the word no, or actually you don't quite suit the role, if I really wanted it, you know, even now I still do it. Like, I've just done a secondment, which is my department's released me to do an engineering secondment, work within the engineering team at Sky for 6 months. I went for an interview. Because I used to do engineering, I didn't get that job, but what I got off the back of it was a secondment. It was fantastic. And so from there, myself, I'm even looking to be an apprentice, an engineering apprentice, because I've just found out they're going to do, hopefully, a scheme at Sky where you'll get a degree, and it's just a no-brainer for me. So for me, I don't really let anything, not people's perceptions, not the stereotype of what you should be. If I want to do something, then I'll break through that barrier. It's almost like a personal challenge. So I get an energy, an enthusiasm about it, and I love proving people wrong. There's no better thing, is there?
Exactly.
Once I've applied for a job, I just tend to try and forget about it. some of my friends literally think that, oh, I do really well, so I go from job to job most of the time. But for every job that you get, you've not got X amount of jobs. And it's literally, you've just got to keep going. And also when the industry is extremely sort of competitive, I remember when I was a runner, and there's loads of sort of run groups on Facebook and stuff, and I applied for, when I worked on Foreign Bird as a runner, and then it's kind of moved up on there. And when I went for my interview, and I was lucky enough to get the job, I did ask how many kind of, because it was advertised on Facebook, how many kind of people applied, and they said about 150, 175 people applied, and that's a lot of people. And even things like if you're too slow and you just don't apply quick enough, then they'll just forget the rest of people, because at the end of the day they're still making a show at the same time. So you've kind of got to have your wits about you, and yeah, just don't give up.
Yeah, that's the answer there. Don't give up. Keep doing what you're doing. Any other questions from the floor right now? A couple at the front, one there. Yep.
How do you find self-motivation to sort of keep going for all that?
Who wants to start with that one?
If you have passion, like if you have a real interest, then it's in you. Now, all right, you could say, well, how am I going to know that I've got that passion when I don't really know what these jobs are? As soon as you enter into something, you'll know that's not for me. Or you'll find something you think, oh, I really like that. Now, that might not be the job you end up doing, but you'll end up going down that path. The motivation will be there because you'll feel that need to just want to do that job and be around it. You know, I work a lot in a live situation. For some people, they don't like it because it's quite full on, it's quite stressful. Other people, you thrive on that energy. So it's finding your energy of what grabs your passion, and you'll know as you go along. If something is just a chore for you, you think, I'm switching off, I'm not enjoying this, that's not your motivation, that's not the thing that's going to give you your passion to find that motivation. Because the motivation's in all of you. You've just got to find the thing that you really want to do. Well, you're not going to know that, maybe some of you will. But the majority of people aren't going to know that overnight. So you try and error some things, and then you start realising, but that comes with networking, talking to people, you know. So don't be too worried if you think, well, I've got no motivation. You know, you will find it, and when you haven't got it, you'll know it's probably not the right job that you're in.
Anyone else?
I think like I say, it's one of those jobs that working in this type of industry, it's one of those jobs that you can't really. Whereas 3 years ago, I used to work at Asda. Anyone could work at Asda, but unless you really enjoy it, like you regret it if you don't have a passion for it and you don't enjoy it. But then if you do enjoy it, then it is literally the best job in the world. Well, I think it's if you enjoy it.
I mean, you've all made I don't know where you are in your, like, you know, your kind of understanding of what you want to do, but you've made a decision to kind of like go into a creative industry, or you're making those decisions. And to me, it's rooted in you having to do things yourself a bit, really, because those opportunities don't always come to you. So like with the grads that we work on at the moment, we're always looking at what they can apply for after our grad ends, you know, and we look at that consistently all the time throughout. So you know, that self motivation, you got to think about your end goal. I mean, do you worry about self motivation yourself?
Yeah.
You do? Okay. So do you have trouble with like kind of thinking knockdowns and kind of wanting to do, what do you do with that?
Well, it's more just maintaining that motivation and not sort of burning out from that work.
Yeah. I mean, that's a. I mean, I have these conversations on a daily basis with our young people, and I'm like, they're like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. How do I become better at what I'm doing? And they really are good. They're like really good. They're like 10 times better than what I was when I started out. Like, they're so good, it's unbelievable. But they just lack that self-belief and that motivation. And you've got to take in, when you get rejected, like you were saying, maybe it lies within going, if I would get rejected, to the side, back onto the next one, to the side, back onto the next one. There's 3 people here, but anyone in the creative industries will tell you, if you keep going, it works out. You know? So that is motivation. That's what you've got to have, that belief, really, in kind of making it work.
Motivation can be hard. I work a lot from home. I've got an office at home. And the other day, the new Star Wars game turned up on the Xbox, and I was like, I've got a shitload of work to do. But actually, I'll play Star Wars. And I played Star Wars for 4 hours. And I used to play video games professionally. I used to play them to review them. And I actually felt guilty after about 4 hours. And then I realised that the self-motivation still worked, because I was like, look, if I don't get this work done, I'm going to be behind for the rest of the week, and somebody's going to be really unhappy, or I'm not going to get my weekend with my daughter, or whatever. So it's insane. Like, I started with a real drive at the age of 16, which is God knows how many years ago now, nearly 25 years ago, which is insane when I think about it, stopping here and talking, because I don't live looking backwards. I'm always looking forwards. But for me, it's like, even at my age, I'm like, what's next? What am I going to do next? What am I going to learn? Oh, look, this opportunity's presented itself to me. And you'll be staggered, right? If you get into this sort of thing, like Jodie was saying, the opportunities, once you get into a line of work, if you show enthusiasm and willingness to progress at any age, these opportunities come at you. But you've got to show it. And what you've got to do as a group of people is, there'll be thousands of people coming out of colleges or universities at the same time as you. Don't take that as a setback. Think, how am I going to stand out in front of all of these people? And you can do it now, which means you don't have to start panicking in a year and a half, 2 years' time, or a year or 6 months. If you can just start proving to people like me, Gert, Jodie, or Connor on the desk here, that you've made some effort in your own time and initiative to try and find out more about an industry you want to work in, you're going to prove to me above 20 or 30 of the other people who apply for any of the same positions, just because you can't just walk into a place and go, I quite fancy the idea of that, I've had no experience, I've not tried anything, I've not done anything. But if you actually, like everybody's saying here, if you show some effort, show some willingness, show some interest, you do that. And you were saying, Jodie, and your colleague was saying earlier, somebody from Wiltshire College literally just came to Sky, knocked on the door and said, how's about it? Show me around, let's have a look around.
The industry is as much about tenacity than anything else. Don't step outside your comfort zone. If you don't ask, you don't get. Seriously. And one of the students approached Mark, he's a senior engineer from Sky, he's coming on Wednesday, and he approached for work experience. And we didn't even know how difficult it was for this young lad to be travelling. He kept it all quiet, but he got to site and he did his work experience in Mark. And we were so impressed with him that actually opened up the communications with Nicola. And from that, there were site tours that happened, and there's been ongoing communications with Wiltshire College, and that's also why I'm here today. That's thanks to that one student. Some people stand out. You know, there's different ways to do things. Don't ever be frightened also just to walk in somewhere and hand your CV or ask for a name, as long as you've got a name. And just tenacity and stepping outside your comfort zone. All right, it might be difficult, feel like you haven't got the confidence to do it, but seriously, it's as easy as opening your mouth and asking. And as I said, the worst thing they can say to someone is no. What if you lost? You didn't have it in the first place. If they've said no, you can always go back, because they'll be like, oh, this person isn't going away. They've got staying power. And that's what the industry is looking for, self-motivation and staying power. Because it's ever evolving, you know? It's a very interesting but very busy industry. And so to think you could just turn it on and just, it's not going to happen. You've got to have the energy for yourself, because there's other people that will. So it's not like you've got to go into competition, just don't be afraid to approach. And my key thing, and I said it at the beginning, is always remember everyone you're talking to, everyone you're standing in front of in the industry, if you want to go into the industry, you'll come back again and meet them. They will remember. They will remember you for all different kinds of reasons. So, yeah.
My rule in so far in my career has always be nice to people on the way up, because you're going to need them on the way back down.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure when my way back down begins. I'm sure it will be soon, and I'll be turning to all sorts of other people to get that help and advice. Any other questions in the room? Anybody else right now? Was that somebody putting up a half hand at the back, just trolling me? No, nobody, no questions there. So, Connor, an interesting question for you, just because I know that you've worked with all of these interesting people. You've worked with people like Philip Schofield, Jane McDonald, Alan Sugar. How do you pinch yourself in these scenarios and think, I'm working with some of the biggest names on TV? How does it impact your work to be working on a regular basis with all of these people?
To be honest, I don't really notice it that much, because they're just normal people. Some of my friends are always like, oh, I'd be kind of all nervous around them, but literally, when you're kind of in that bubble, everyone's there to do a job at the end of the day, and they're there to do a job as well. So to them, you're not really a normal sort of member of the public, and you're kind of there to kind of make them look good, as opposed to. But no, yeah, they're just normal people at the end of the day, and it's just the difference is there in front of the camera, and everyone else is kind of behind it.
Can you tell us who won The Apprentice?
No.
Oh yeah, that's one of the big sports.
No chance.
You've probably been signed onto a secret contract for that. Gertch, one of the things I was interested about what you said was about the rise of social media. Do you think that's a bit of a game changer in terms of like what you've done in sort of directing, self-shooting, creating your own short films? Do you think there is actually still an opportunity for stuff to break through in that way? Like to share your content, share your video? Do you think that's a good way, if these guys want to do that kind of thing, is it a good place to start?
Not 100%. I mean, Instagram, that's massive, you know. If you can, the algorithms have kind of changed on Instagram a little bit. It's much more difficult to get your content seen by other people. Tags don't work like they used to. So you just got to be creative about it. But definitely the social world is huge. So, you know, if there's a young person and they've applied for something, I'll always go and check out their Instagram and see what kind of stuff they're into, what they're looking at. And you get a real good impression of where they're at, really. That never used to be the case before. You could apply for what you wanted, and people would have to look for or get a recommendation from you. Already, I can see the kind of stuff you're into. So if you're a creative person and you're going for a creative job, be really conscious of your social outlook, I suppose, and how you're putting your content out there. So, you know, I think it's important to definitely put content out there, really.
That's a really good point, actually. I went to, we were hiring for something when I was at Instagram, and we were actually looking around people's social media accounts. And I have to be completely honest and say that one of the people we really liked didn't get a chance to come in due to the fact that 90% of their posts were about the weed and stuff they were currently smoking. Now, I have a liberal attitude to smoking dope, but if you're coming to me for a job and you're telling me that you're going to be super creative and on it, that belies what I'm seeing on your social media if you're just talking about what strain of weed you're smoking that week. I learned quite a lot about weed from this person, actually. I've got to be completely honest. Any other questions from the room before I go down a weed smoking angle? Any other questions in the room? There's one at the back there, the chap with his hoodie, with the, yeah.
What do you think about the idea of people needing like a following on social media to get certain jobs, or like someone being picked over someone else because they have more of a social media following?
Happens a lot in radio. So if you listen, you thankfully you'll probably be sat in a car with your mum or dad when you're listening to Radio 2. But Radio 2 now, the strategy on Radio 2 is hire somebody that's been made famous somewhere else or has a large social media audience. It's even happening in local radio now. So if you listen to someone like BBC Wiltshire, they now have a YouTuber from somewhere doing a show on the station. I think it's become a different way of finding talent. I also think having a following on social media and having a voice, and influence can come in all sorts of ways. You don't need 20,000 followers to have influence over people or tell your stories or do things in an interesting way and have an engaged following. Like Gertz was saying, like people like me, all of us here would probably, if you were coming in for a job, we take a look at what you've done on social media. You don't need to worry about having a blue tick or anything ridiculous like that. But if you show that you were engaging with people, like a really good example for me, somebody we hired as an apprentice recently at a place I was working at, they were engaging loads with the right people in the industry. They were following people on social media, they were engaging with their content, they were sharing content that they found interesting. It just proved to me that they had an interest and they had something that they were doing. So that will probably be in your, like with your work. Gertz, do you find yourself, does the size of somebody's following matter, or is it about what they're delivering?
Yeah, but no, sorry. So, it doesn't matter for me if you've got like 20 followers or 2,000 or 20,000, because we're looking at the style that you put onto your Instagram and the kind of stuff you're doing. So we're a film production company, so we're looking for people to be interested in the relevant kind of stuff, really. So if they're taking pictures, is it kind of aesthetically pleasing, or even if they've got their own style, so are they using a VHS effect? How are they making that look? Is it just kind of made to look rubbish, or is it made to look interesting? Anyone, they might have shot some music videos already. What's the kind of approach they're putting to there? We're not looking for the finished product by any means. We're just looking for someone who has a voice and a style, really. So that's quite important, I think, when you're thinking about your own Instagram and looking at, and it depends on the kind of jobs you're going for. So if you're going for a runner job, I don't think it's as important, but if you're trying to go for more of a creative kind of job, then I think really think about that. In transmission control, is that important?
Actually, there's an interesting point here about transmission control. You were saying earlier on the number of meetings in Sky about trying to work out how to make people understand what it's about. What your sales pitch, like if we were, there'd be people in this room who'll be interested in finding out more. Like, how would you describe we talked a little bit about what you do, but describe a typical day for these guys. What's involved? What skills are you bringing into your day's work from your learnings?
Skills to do my job. You have to be very organised, forward thinking, and you prepare hours in advance. And the reason you do that isn't because, okay, you prepared hours in advance, your work is done. It's so that when the proverbial hits the fan,
you can say shit.
When shit hits the fan, you're on the ball, everything else is sorted. No 2 days are the same, and you can't predict it. If we have someone, a member of the royal family, who unfortunately dies, I was there in transmission at ITV for Princess Diana. I received a phone call that she was in a car crash, and then I received the following phone call that, okay, she's died. Without anyone knowing, okay, now all schedules are going to change. It was mayhem. This is without equipment failing. Like everything in life, if you get the best equipment in the world, it will still at some point fail. And what you have to do in that moment is quite unbelievable. So it can go from, they've likened it to my job to being a firefighter, right? Because you have massive periods of dormant, nothing's going on, everything's fine, you're drinking a cup of coffee, and then within an instant, your heart is in your mouth and your chest is pumping. Now, for some people, they wouldn't like that. For others, we thrive on it. So when you're saying, I think the gentleman earlier on said about the motivation, when you have that induced into you, your motivation is there already, you're running on it. And actually, when you come out of a situation like that, you're on a bit of a high. So it's very addictive. to do that. But to explain really a transmission control, my room is like a hub. So anything that you're seeing or you're watching, it doesn't matter if it's a live program or a pre-recorded program, there is so many meetings that have been involved in deciding the look of it, how they want the style of it to be, whether it's, you know, to the fine details, to the promotional videos that go out and content that's actually setting up that program for people to know that program is going to happen. All those decisions are months in the making. So when that finally that end product comes to our room, that needs to go out how it was meant to the viewer. And so, you know, we have some artistic license, but we always have to take all of that in mind. So it's quite a minefield, and I would love people to actually see it, because it's a bit like Starship Enterprise. Lots of buttons, lots of monitors, and when you first look, you think, what is this? But then, you know, these are all you get out of shit buttons.
You said you used to have a handle called George.
When I was at
trying to get my head around
ITV,
that.
well, I used to work, now everything's digital, I used to work with tape, physically lacing tape up, and the stuff that we do now that's a click of a button on a mouse, it was actually us physically using tools to do and manually getting involved. But there was, with ITV, it had regions and it had network, and the regions would all jump onto a network, so it was all looking at the same thing, say like ITN News. And at that point it was called like a junction break, and everyone would hop on George. Right? And so I was like, well, what is George and why are we hopping onto it? But it was a paddle and a big button, and we actually had to paddle the junction for everyone to jump onto it. Now that doesn't happen, it's seamless. You don't need anything like that. But back in the day, you had a big paddle, everyone jumped on George, and George was actually derived from a term from, I believe, it was in the army or in the Second World War that they used. I don't actually know the fine details of it, but that's where that comes from.
Things move on so quickly. When I started, the internet was locked in the boss's office and you had to get special permission to use it. We've got a few minutes left. You can obviously come and ask questions afterwards, or we'll be around. Any other questions from the room right now? I'm just looking around. Any other questions? No?
They're all thinking on the coach the way.
Oh, there's one there. You've got one there.
Oh, there we go.
We'll do that one.
What sort of universities do you guys go to?
I went to the University of West of England. I decided to go there. I did English and history actually. I didn't even do a media course, and that was my decision because I think I was a bit burnt out by that point. I actually had a year out between school and going to university. I really enjoyed going to university because it gave me a different perspective on life. I think that's probably the best thing I got from my university course, was a bit of extra age and a bit of perspective when I came into the workforce. Those are the skills it gave me that I use every day.
I went to Lincoln, that was quite a while ago, so yeah, it's fine. I mean, I think the thing to consider is, do I go to university or do I not? That's a big consideration. There's real benefits to going to university, definitely. If you want to be a filmmaker or a self-shooter, the thing is, can I do that without going to university? So I've dealt with both. I've dealt with young people who haven't gone to university and have, and they've both got skills and like things that the other hasn't really, in a way. So at the age of 21, someone's already knowing how to use all the kit, has already got clients, is already kind of building that network up, and is already kind of in the real world doing that kind of stuff. Or you can go to university and have really a great experience of life, as well as having access to some great kit as well, really. So it's just considerations. I can't vouch if they do one or the other. It's just something you guys got to work out, really.
I went to Ravensbourne, and as I stated, I came from a creative background, so the technical side, the theory side of it was horrendous for me. I had to do retakes non-stop. Practical was brilliant. This is no reflection on Ravensbourne, it's just me as a character, so if any of you actually think, yeah, that's a bit like me, I didn't actually start learning or getting perspective or understanding any of it until I stepped into my first job. And I was completely honest and said, I know I've just done 2 years at Ravensbourne, I literally don't feel I know anything. And it isn't a reflection on them. I have no perspective. So they were like, okay, let's start from the play button onwards. And I haven't looked back. So I think, being honest with yourself of where you're at. Some people are learning one way, some people are learning another. I learn visually. I'm not a theory person. I have to relate it to the actual job. So know yourself and know what's best for you. I look after apprentices, technology apprentices. They're 18, and for them, they're getting a qualification and they're getting experience and they're getting paid. For them, it made sense to do that. A lot of their friends have gone to university. It's down to the individual, I think.
And yourself, Colin?
So I went to university of Gloucestershire in Cheltenham, and to be honest, after I finished college, I didn't, as a person, I wasn't really ready to go into the industry. And I went to uni and had like the best 3 years of my life, as well as kind of doing all the practical stuff. And I also used some of my student loan to kind of go and do work experience, because then I could go and then those contacts then allowed me to get my first job. Whereas before, if I had a job on the side, then I think it would have been quite difficult to kind of take a lot of time off to go and do some work experience, because some jobs might not quite been so understanding. But no, one other point is just when you're at college or university, just take every opportunity you can and make the most of it. Like, you will get given some opportunities, and when you do, definitely take them. It's like when I was at college, we did this sort of 24-hour sort of live broadcast, which I'm sure Nikki and Simon would love to do again. No, she said no. But things like that, and then when you go to interviews and stuff, people want to talk to you about it. And then when we did that at college years ago, we sort of got invited to this sort of RTS kind of awards thing, where we kind of got a bit recognised for it, which is quite good. And when I went to university, I sort of met people there, and kind of just take every opportunity you kind of get, because you never know who you're going to meet, who then help you on later on down the line when you're kind of looking for something.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody, and thanks for listening to us. I think Nick's going to tell us what's next.
Okay, this is the bit where it could get really, really complicated. Don't panic, we are going to send you off for a break. Can I just check with Salisbury and Trowbridge lecturers, do your guys know which groups